So, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Coaching Corner with me, Pascal Floor, and on the other end, once again, Harry Smith, Coach Harry Smith, and the beautiful Jess Dalglish. Terrier. Dalglish, Terrier. Well, what is it now? I'm always confused which one it is.
My actual name is Terrier, but I use Dalglish on social media because I've been using it for years, but my real name is Terrier.
That is so confusing, actually.
And Dalglish is
that's
Scottish,
right.
Is it not?
It's Scottish, yeah. It's from the Liverpool player.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Do you know that there is a dog that is also a terrier?
Oh, many dogs. Yeah, it's like a whole family of dogs.
Yeah. So anyway, we are not here to talk about dogs. This time we thought that we are doing a little bit differently than we normally do things, that we didn't specifically wanted to talk about one topic, but we actually asked for questions over on Instagram, and Jess was the one collecting all of those questions. So that's something that we want to get into here today. But before we do that, because we don't have you guys on that often, I just want to get a quick update on what it is that you guys are up to at the moment. So let's start off with Jess. Give the listeners a little bit of an update on what it is that you're doing at the moment, besides being in lockdown.
I'm still stuck in France. That's what I was going to start with. Unfortunately, I'm still stuck here. Can't travel for now. I was supposed to move to the US in April, celebrate my 30th, and start prep there. Unfortunately,
moving to the US.
Well, for 3 months, usual nomad life.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. So I'm looking for another option, maybe Mexico, but I'm not sure yet. And as training and nutrition, Steve tricked me into a dieting phase, a longer one than it was supposed to be. I was supposed to start a mini cut 10 days ago, and we are actually starting the diet before the diet. So I am pre-prepping now.
Oh, very cool. What about your preps, Harry?
Prep didn't happen last year. Well, it started, it just didn't finish because of obviously lockdown and everything. And I made a call to not carry on with it. Loads of people wanted to carry on, but I just felt like for me, it wasn't the best decision to carry on with the prep. And then this year, I started massing just before Christmas, and quickly I had some issues that I hadn't recovered from. Like I had consistent elbow tendonitis and some lower back stuff. And I thought I could get around it just from some extra deloads and stuff like that. So I started massing, thought the extra calories would help as well. And then like 1.5 mesocycles into the mass, the elbow tendonitis just reached a point where it was too great to even overload any of my upper body sessions anymore.
Really?
And then it started influencing my lower body sessions, as in I couldn't hold a working load on RDLs, for example, because it was my elbow that was a limiting factor, even with straps. So I took about 2.5 weeks of active rest over Christmas, and I've gone back into massing from last week, and it actually feels the way that massing is supposed to feel. I feel energized. I feel motivated to train. I'm not limited by my elbow. So things are going really well. So I'm massing, but I started massing a little bit chubbier than I'd want to start. So I don't think this is going to be the longest massing phase, but it's going to be a hell of a lot more productive than me just moaning about my elbow and doing half-hour sessions all the time. So
absolutely.
I'm expecting to get 3 or 4 massing mesos, and then probably a mini cut, and then maybe 2 or 3 after that, and then have to think about a longer cut.
Sounds very cool. No, absolutely. Thank you very much, guys.
How about you?
Right now I started my cutting phase 1.5 weeks ago. But I don't know whether I need to just call it quit here already, simply due to some health issues that I am getting checked out right now. I'm getting an MRI scan of my head just because I don't know what is going on at the moment. I already said to you guys right before jumping on a call that I'm suffering from severe headaches since like a month already, and also blurry vision because I see flashes the entire time in front of my eyes. And this, of course, then impacts also the work that I'm able to do. And then besides that, just not feeling great overall, not feeling healthy. Just, I can't put it in other terms. I'm just not feeling healthy at the moment. But at the same time, I'm so stubborn that I want to hold on to the thought of prepping this year. But right now, doesn't really feel good, everything. becomes more of a hassle. And I also know that a caloric deficit doesn't really help the course overall. And then other personal things, such as Tony needs to undergo surgery at the beginning of February, which is, I think for every parent, I can say that this is a horrible thought of just sending his kid into the surgery room, and then it's up to them, right? And he is only 1.5 years old, and he needs to stay at the hospital for 7 days, and that just like fucking messes with me as well. So lots of things that are going on, negatively speaking, and lots of things that need to get tested and checked. Also, when it comes to my hormonal status at the moment, because many things that I'm going through remind me of 2017 when I was hypogonadal. And yeah, I just need to get things checked to make a proper decision on how to move forward. Not the best news or most positive news, but I had a good run last year in regards to the gaining phase, and yeah, maybe it needed to come that way. I don't know. Right, so yeah, but let's move over then to questions. So let's see. Let's get the first question here from Mitch. This is my man, Mitch. When are bands worth implementing on exercises like hacks, so hack squats, RDLs, etc., etc.? So Jess, maybe you want to start now that you got a monster in your face.
I don't know if it's going to make me smarter, but
yeah, you need your blue light blockers to make you
concentrated.
Right? Actually, funny story. I have never used bands on any machine before, beside the belt squat that I used a couple of months ago. But yeah, I've never actually used bands or programmed any banded work outside of banded pull-ups or banded dips when it's easier or convenient to do so. So I'm probably not going to be the best person to answer that. If Harry, you have more experience with that.
Wait a second, Jess. I think that this is still interesting because there's probably a rationale for why you didn't do it in the first place, when there clearly was a time where many people were promoting that style of training as well. So what was the rationale for you just sticking with, I would say, like the more traditional style of training?
Well, first off, I do not have access to a hack squat in my gym. And I do have access to a leg press, so I guess that doesn't cancel that. I think it's because I am very unaware of the actual benefits of the bands, and it didn't really seem like I needed to use them, just because I was progressing very, very well linearly. So I didn't really see a need for it. When it comes to RDLs, I always ask myself if it's really helpful. I actually have tried bended RDLs before. When you bend actually around your waist, and it's just really weird. I feel really like, I just feel like the tension is not where it's supposed to be. So it was a no for me. But yeah, again, my experience with it is very limited. But yeah, I think it's just lack of knowledge about it, really.
What about you, Harry?
I was trying not to smirk. But no, with bands, I think the only time you'd ever really want to utilize them would be if you're following like 5-3-1 in a strength program, or the conjugate method, where they love their accessory stuff and ancillary stuff, which is all really outside the scope of bodybuilding itself. Because I think there was a big kind of wave of people using things like bands and chains and stuff, probably like 2000 and maybe like 2008, 2009, 2010. And I think it's kind of diminished then, because you kind of realize that the application of those things, for the most part, it creates more variables, which you have to manage. Because, for example, trying to squat with bands makes the squat infinitely more difficult. And then you're so much more focused on your balance and trying not to get absolutely slingshotted into the floor than you are about trying to make sure you're absolutely maximizing like the mind muscle connection and stuff like that. Things like RDLs, if you add a band to that, say the band is on the ground and it's looped around the bar, the chances are that, at least in my mind, the way I'm analyzing it now, that you're going to create more of a moment around your erector spine, like your spinal erectors, rather than your glutes and hamstrings, which is going to make that obviously not ideal, because you're ideally trying to focus on the hamstrings and glutes in that exercise. Hack squats, I can see a rationale for that, because they are hard as hell in the hole. And I have done like reverse banded hack squats before. But a lot of hack squat machines don't actually have band pegs or something on it. So I found that the hack squat machine I was using, at least, I was ultra concerned that the band was going to snap while I was using it, because I'd like kind of MacGyvered it, like around the machine itself. And it was going around lots of like right angled pieces of steel. So I was like, ugh. So I don't think it has a huge application there. What was Mitch's question? When are they worth implementing on exercises? Yeah. I think when you're training from home and you have very limited equipment, bands can be really useful. So for example, a leg curl, if you have zero equipment except a resistance band, then you're able to do a knee flexion movement because you have the band, and that works quite well with that kind of thing. And I also find that delts tend to work quite well with bands when you have no other equipment available. But in terms of like augmenting an existing exercise with a band, I think for the most part it makes it less effective in my eyes, not more effective. How do you feel about it, Pascal?
No, I totally agree with you guys. So the only time that I've implemented that, so bands, was with hack squats as well, because I've seen it over on Instagram. I was just like, yeah, let's give it a try. To be honest, I didn't really feel that much of a difference. I didn't. Probably, yes, the strength profile is a little bit more evenly spread out so that the top of the movement is also a little bit harder. But is that very much necessary? No, because we know that in the bottom of the movement of the hack squat, that is where the most tension is, and also the most stretch under load for the quads. And that is probably the moment that it counts the most for a hypertrophic stimulus. And it's not the top of the movement that you then need to make harder also. And when it then comes, so I totally agree with everything that you guys said. So I don't really need to fall back to those things or repeating those things. I just think that using something like bands for hypertrophic outcomes, it's just unnecessary, making things more complicated than they need to be without a proper rationale of a true benefit. Because when I think of adding things, no matter what it is, certain variables, certain strategies or so, then this should always come from a perspective of adding a benefit. And I really don't see that much of a benefit in adding something like bands, other than more so complicating things. And yeah, this is basically it, where it's coming from. Yeah, maybe there might be a better tension then. Maybe also you are moving a little bit in a better fashion or a different fashion even. But is that enough to justify making use of those things, setting things up? I think it's just, to me at least, it's not worth it. And I also have a very strong opinion about people who are preaching biomechanics at the moment. And it seems that they are the ones always making use of those bands and always having a good rationale for that, which in my opinion and my personal experience as well, doesn't really or isn't really like that. But that is just me, can be my biases speaking, but this is just how I perceive things of using bands. Are they worth implementing? Rarely. There is definitely a place for it, such as with every tool, but I personally am not the biggest fan, and I only use that when there is a true benefit. And right now, it's definitely at home, but in a gym, I think that that's the beauty about having machines, right? That we can actually work or incorporate some exercises in a different way. And thus adding another thing, another variable of like bands, no.
I love how
anything
you've
to add there
with a resistance band in the shot behind you as well.
yeah, right. And I use that band here for reverse flies, for example, right, for the rear delts.
Because you wouldn't necessarily select that over a dumbbell variant if you had the option of a dumbbell variant.
Never, especially because bands don't really offer a good strength profile or resistance profile, right? And yeah, once again, you can always make the argument of like, I don't know, use it around your hips for something like the RDLs to also then make the lock out a little bit harder. But why? I mean, if you're already using just a lot of weight and have a proper technique, exactly. I think that you are already probably working your muscles to the fullest extent. And then you don't really need to add a little bit more resistance at that portion of the lift.
Yeah.
Right?
Agreed.
So, yeah, no other comments on bands and biomechanics?
All right. I have one thing. when people use a band but they use it incorrectly, like for example in my gym I've had loads of resistance bands broken by gym members because they put the band around the bar but they put it around the knurled part of the bar. It's like, how many brain cells do you need to understand that friction and latex do not go well together? Anyway, that's
there's another thing, right, which I was referring to when I say like you're overly complicating things for little to no benefit, and maybe sometimes even you are getting some downsides to it because you need to focus on other things that you don't really need to focus on at the moment. Right? So yeah, for people, when it's just like pressing against your hips, maybe it's an uncomfortable sensation as well. And I don't know, when I'm using these kind of things for hack squats at home, just wrapping around your neck, right? It's just sometimes it's a little bit uncomfortable. It
pulls out the hairs on your neck as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You end up putting your hood up.
Yeah, and in a gym environment, I don't know, hardly ever see any kind of true reason for using bands in a gym setting. That's what machines are there for, to actually move or work the muscles in a different plane or kind of fashion.
Are people using them to actually feel and learn how to do like a proper hip hinge? It really bothers me when people use a band around their waist doing an RDL to use that as learning how to feel like a hip hinge, what it's supposed to feel. But I'm like, this is not the way to go. Like, if you want to learn that, just do a hip thrust, as Harry said. I think it's way more efficient.
Totally. And especially in that scenario or example that you brought up, people are always complaining about doing more volume because all that teaches you, and also a lot of things the adaptations are going through is for you to actually be able to do more volume. And the same applies to that. When you're learning a skill, you don't want to learn it with a band around your hips because this is not the normal way that you do that movement. So all you are learning then is to do that movement with a band around your hips. That doesn't necessarily mean that it automatically one-to-one applies to you being able to do this now without a band. And this is so you brought up a good point. If you then teach someone how to do a hip hinge with that properly, that doesn't automatically mean that they are now able to do that without a band.
Yeah, I mean, and the goal of the RDL is to use your hamstring in like its stretched position. So it's not really a requirement to actually use the band to feel your glutes when you actually lock out the RDL. It makes no sense to me.
Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of the Revive Stronger member site. Inside you'll find a thriving forum, a growing exercise library, presentations, research reviews and courses. If you want to get involved, sign up via the description.
Absolutely. Let's go over to the next one then. Breaking my limits asks, handling home workouts.
My client.
Oh, okay.
Francisco.
Handling home workouts with that with no gear whatsoever. So,
what gear
Harry,
are you referring to?
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say, like, Harry, do you want to say something here?
I'm pretty sure he's natural. He knows, yeah. No gear whatsoever. It presents like a myriad of challenges, doesn't it? So the first thing I always do is say, are you absolutely sure you have no gear or cannot get access to some gear? Because we're referring to gym equipment, not gear. As long as you've got your Deca and your Trembolone, you're all right. But yeah, so I guess what we would do in this instance is focus a lot on some metabolite style techniques, because obviously like body weight squats aren't in themselves challenging unless we do other things first, like perhaps pre-exhausting with something else. Like one of my favorite combos for people with no equipment is like bodyweight sissy squats as a pre-exhaust, then going into some kind of squat variation. But then we make tweaks to whatever variation we're doing to put the target muscle in the least advantageous or most disadvantaged position we can. So like we would do close stance, heels elevated, bodyweight squats, or like foam roller squats if you have that, like, you know what I mean, like foam roller hack squats and pre-exhausting. But it presents a challenge, but it's not insurmountable, as we know. Like we've all got really good results with clients over the course of like all the lockdowns and people being stuck at home. But I found that having access to at least being able to create somewhere you can do rows, and then create somewhere where you can do some kind of deficit pushes, and then obviously find a way to fatigue your quads and hamstrings is the most important stuff. And you can do all those things without having any equipment. like you've seen people do inverted rows using like any kind of long stick between two stable objects. Push-ups are push-ups. And then knee flexion is a bit of a challenge, but you can do it using like towels and things like that. And yeah, I'll move on to you guys.
Just
yeah, I think using unilateral work as well. I have been programming Bulgarian split squats as every online coach has done during lockdown. They've been super efficient. And I mean, the goal is to create tension. So you can create tension without having a proper barbell. I had a lot of clients that had no equipment at all. And they just started loading backpacks, doing backpack bicep curls, backpack like weighted push-ups. I think push-ups, I had a lot of clients using push-ups for the first time in a very long time. And it's been very, very efficient, like massive pumps. And then you can actually do close grip push-ups to use your triceps more. There are many ways you can actually load a push-up to, and do down sets with like feet elevated push-ups. Unilateral work. I mean, tension is tension. It doesn't have to come from a barbell. You just have to be a little bit creative. I think it does take a toll in terms of motivation, because you have to set up way more things. So I think the goal would be to keep things as simple as possible, which is why push-ups would be like a great idea, or Bulgarian split squats, because you don't have to load or use a ton of equipment. But yeah, unilateral work mainly was a big thing too. I had clients do sheet pull-ups and sheet like face pull off of a door. Like they were just wrapping the sheets around the door, like the back of the door, and then just doing that. And that has been really, really good. They had to do many more reps. So then they were ended using a backpack. So they were carrying a backpack and doing like the sheet pull up. And that's been a great variation, but you have to have a strong sheet and door for that matters. What
Any accidents?
No, nothing at all so far.
I've seen that in the first lockdown already over on YouTube, that someone was doing that as well. And that actually, so it's great to see how creative some people get in doing certain movements. There was just like recently something that I've just discovered in regards to leg extension, where you're basically holding on to something like the table or so. You bend over so that the upper body is parallel to the floor. Then you do something like sissy squats, but you just coming down on your knees and then up again, which basically mimics something like a leg extension. And it's all right. I mean, of course, it's not the same as a leg extension, but we just have to get a little bit creative here during these times. But other than that, I don't have anything else to mention, because you said or brought up good points already. So let's get over to Aaron MC. How much can stress affect subcutaneous water?
Loads. it's immeasurable, really, isn't it? Like, it affects every single person differently.
Yeah, I can bring up a couple of examples, especially because when it comes to heavier individuals or formerly obese people, they have most of the time a little bit more storage capacities due to the additional skin or loose skin. And I've seen like big fluctuations there on a daily basis, or when they're transitioning into a cutting or gaining phase, that it can easily be like up to 10 pounds or so of a difference. And you would be very, very surprised how much water you can maintain when stress is really, really high. And we are speaking about especially something like a severe injury or so. It's not uncommon for people lying in the hospital or coming back. While yes, they are on medication as well, but then holding on to something like 20 pounds above what they are normally actually carrying. And this is crazy. So yeah, you would be surprised of how much it can be. Does it apply to you? Maybe, maybe not, because it's like Harry said, it's super, super dependent on the individual.
I had one client once who, over the course of a 16-week period, I was convinced he wasn't adhering because his body weight was literally maintaining every single week. And he started from a very overweight position, and he hadn't submitted any photos when he was supposed to. And I was obviously thinking, oh God, like he's obviously just not been adhering. So I was constantly trying to push for them to, like what I mean, like, first of all, make sure that they're tracking efficiently, and then address like an honesty thing. And then when I eventually got his photos after about 16 weeks, he visually probably dropped about 20 kilos. And we deduced that it must have just been either incorrect data entry, which is a difficult one to do over the course of a whole 16-week period, or he just had such a severe water retention response to the dieting. And he did have a history of obesity, interestingly enough. So he went from like visibly overweight to visible abs over the course of like this 4-month period, but body weight changed less than a kilo. So I think that's a real instance, my only instance where water has significantly masked actual fat loss. But yeah, thought that was worth sharing.
Yeah. I can actually give a very good example with myself right now. I came back from my mom's after 10 days not training over Christmas. I started what was supposed to be the mini cut and is now the diet before the diet at 62 kilos. The first day of training, I reintroduced creatine after months without taking it. I was PMSing. So I have been on a deficit now for 10 days. My weight hasn't moved. 10 days, 10 entire days, and my weight just hasn't moved. I don't look fatter. I know it's not fat. I know I'm adhering to the deficit. It's just a matter of time. And I know I'm just retaining a lot of water right now because of like many stress factors. So yeah, that's usually what I point out to my clients. I usually use myself as an example because I carry water like crazy. And yeah, I've been in 1,000 calories deficit for 10 days and my weight is at 64 kilos and it's been at 64 kilos for 10 days straight. So yeah, stress, lack of sleep, PMS, even like I have a minor like injury I'm dealing with on my left wrist. So that obviously too, another stress factor. So yeah, I'm usually not too worried because I know I'm adhering to the deficit. If you trust that the client is adhering to the deficit, it's just a matter of time before the weight drops. And if it doesn't drop, visual really helps, just pictures.
Totally. And I mean, if you want to see severe cases of how much people can just hold on to water or retain water, just Google edema. It's a very common phenomenon with some people that they are just like ballooning up, and even Steve has suffered from that. And I would even probably assume that this has a lot to do with just a stressful environment. And this even goes as far like you can then just touch your ankles and it stays like this for a longer period of time, like just like pushed inwards.
My brother had it in his hands a couple of years ago, and it was really weird because he has muscular arms and then his hands looked like they'd been inflated with air. Yeah. And then when you like squished them, you could see like your fingerprint would last for like a good minute. Yeah, it was really crazy. But yeah, he went to the doctors and it's fine. But he had these puffy hands for ages.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something that some people deal with, and this just goes to show how much water it is that you can maintain in a very short period of time when stress levels are super high. But yeah, Elias, let's go over. Oh no. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Elias had that on prep last year when he was prepping with Steve. Yeah, he had a lot of like edemas. He was retaining a lot of water that way.
Let me guess, it was in his quads.
I don't think so.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe the stress will go and his quads will just shrink.
It's like, have you seen that? Oh, I don't know where it was from kind of some kind of reality show or so, that super overweight chick who was just claiming that she's just holding onto a lot of water, and she was just like super obese. It's just like water retention.
It's just water weight.
Yeah.
A
lot of people tend to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they say it not from a place of like dishonesty. It's more a place of ignorance for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so. So Connor, our man, he has asked, assessing female physique progress during period. Moonblood. So
Moonblood.
Jess, this is a question for you.
His words, very important to precise. It's his words. Moonblood. I'm not. Assessing female physique progress during periods. I mean, I wouldn't really choose the time of your period to actually assess progress physique. I would actually choose probably 2 weeks after, when you're like close to ovulating and you're actually dropping the water weight, because it's just less mess. It's just less variables that you have to deal with. So in my own opinion, as a female, I know the fluctuations that happen when I'm on my period and when I'm not. And if I do check-in pictures for Steve, for example, I always make sure it's not on my period. And if you do so when you're on your period, just make sure that it's when you're on your period every time. Just keep it consistent, pretty much. But I would avoid doing any physique check-ins when you're on your period, just because it's not going to be a natural representation of how you look, because you're just carrying water, you can be bloated. So yeah, either
also your mindset too would be typically be more negative as well. So I would also avoid trying to get progress photos done during that period, just for that aspect 100%. Too, the stress it could create.
Yeah, body image issues when you're in your period, you're just bloated and you're just like, yeah, it can affect you mentally. But I would really avoid doing physique assessments during period. It's just too many variables you have to play with.
That brings up an interesting question from my end, and Jess, this is more so directed towards you. What if the show day is falling on a time where you have a period? So
that happened
I'm
to
just
me.
coming from, yeah, so cool. Just to elaborate a little bit further on the question, because taking physique pictures, I think, should be independent of whether you are having the period or not, because you can't really control it when or if you are stepping on stage and then it's show day. Then you can't just like say, no, I have my period, I don't look my very best now, so I will not compete, or can you guys wait for me, right? I think that the majority of female athletes, they may also then suffer from something like amenorrhea during that period of time. But I think it's a valid question then or more of concern to raise. If you always take the pictures when you look your very best, it could be that you are then stepping on stage when you don't. And what then?
Yeah, so really, really good question. I would still avoid doing check-in pictures when you're on your period. It doesn't have to be when you look your best, but it's avoiding doing them when you're on your period. Just you don't have to deal with the variables that comes with a period when you do your check-in pictures. Now, when you step on stage, if you do have your period, it's just bad luck. There's no other way to put it. I had my period the day of my show. In the morning, I woke up with my period. I was kind of happy that I still had my period when I was stage lean. I wasn't really stage lean, but from the pictures, you can say I had more stress. I think my cortisol must have been so high that day, the day of nationals qualifier. Definitely carrying a lot more water, but again, I wasn't really stage lean. I wasn't diced, so it's really hard to assess. But unfortunately, if you are on the pill, or if you are taking anything that you can control when your period is going to happen, it would be better to actually try to delay your period if you can do so, if you can manipulate that. If you can't, then it's just bad luck. I mean, it's just going to happen that way, and I don't think there's a miracle solution for that. If anyone has any other input on that, I'm very happy to take it, but I think it just comes down to luck, honestly.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, do you think that there's anything that you can do about it to avoid it falling on that show day? Or if it's then happening, maybe some strategies that you can use to at least try to look your very best, even though that you may be someone who's holding onto a lot of water or not?
Yeah, I think they sell a pill that you can take, or a medication that actually delays your period, but you have to tell them in advance, because I think you have to take it a week or 2 weeks before you actually get your period. So if you do track your cycle, and if you're a female, I cannot stress that enough, track your cycle. If you track your cycle and you know it's going to happen around show day, I would definitely try to delay your period using the medication, or just doing 2 cycles of birth control pill in a row. But that would be my best guess at that. Other than that, if you don't track your cycle, or if you're not on any pill, it must be really complicated to delay that.
Yeah.
Does it affect your posing? Just because some of the female clients I've worked with over my career, some of them are affected really adversely when it comes to their period.
Yeah, lower back pain.
Physical ways. Yeah, lower back pain, just stiffness, that kind of stuff.
The back pose. yeah, the back pose in bikini, you really have to arch your lower back. And if you have back pain from your period, that could definitely affect that. Nothing that any medication cannot reverse. If you take some ibuprofen, you should probably be okay, but definitely a little bit more stiff as well. And the bloat, like you've experienced bloat, even if it's not period bloat, it's really uncomfortable when you try to pose. So it's for sure less comfortable than if you were at the best of your capabilities.
So just thinking that it'd probably be worth practicing some of your posing during your period, just as like a contingency plan, just so you have an idea of what it would feel like if that did end up being your lot on stage day.
Yeah, and I honestly, the last couple of months before your show day, I would advise posing every day anyway, so you actually know how to pose under any circumstances.
No, absolutely.
Interesting.
That took a very interesting turn, that question, to be honest. Much more insightful than I anticipated. So, yeah, Ronan asks, the way to do your check-in with your clients. So I think he's asking, like, how do we do our check-ins? I think it's pretty similar with a slight differences probably, right? So of course we don't want to reveal all of our secrets
for being
the greatest coaches in the world. But of course, maybe you guys want to touch on it just briefly.
Obviously I'd say you don't have to do what we do just because we do it. I would say pick the things that you think are most important for you to like track and talk about with your own clients and figure out the best ways to communicate those. But with us, the way that, or at least the way that I do it personally would be, I can't even think right now. I get my clients to record a video that is usually uploaded to YouTube, and then they send that to me. And then what I will do is I will watch their video. If it's super long, I watch it on 2x speed. And then I will basically just summarize their video into the points that I think are most important. And then I will record my own video back, which will be where I actually record my screen, which will have their program open. And then I will talk through anything that I think is worth talking through. I will address their questions and stuff like that. And then I'll send that back to them in video format through some kind of private video server, whatever one we're using at the time, because I tend to change them quite a bit based on many different things. But yeah.
I do the exact same, except that I butcher some English words with my French accent. But that's pretty much that's my own touch, personal touch. But honestly, I do exactly the same as you.
No, same here. I mean, that's also one of the reasons why I think we work together, because we all are under the same. We have somewhat the same principles here when it comes to delivering a message. But it's like Harry said, you don't have to do it our way. It all depends very much how you best communicate with someone else. Right? If you are freaking poor in recording videos because you're stuttering and you don't feel comfortable in front of the camera, then of course don't do it that way. When you rather just want to sit down. So for example, Andy Morgan, he does his client check-ins via email, and he even shared it every now and then over on Instagram, showing his in-depth messages, and they are so long and so well communicated. But this is also because he knows that writing an email is so much better for him than recording a video. Whereas I also know other coaches who are like that, who rather do email check-ins, and also not even on a specific day, where it's more like, okay, here for my clients, I have the rule that they are checking in with me whenever they need me in an email format, and I get back to them in a very specific manner, also via email, right? So find your strength there. It's like when someone wants to become an influencer, you don't have to become a YouTuber. Maybe you just want to stick out your bum and present yourself over on Instagram or so, right? Pick the medium and pick the format that you feel most comfortable with, because that is also then being delivered in the way you communicate. People get that, and people also see that in the messages, right? And you want to, of course, be the supportive figure. And that's also one other thing, right? You are the coach. You are there to actually help the other person. They are not here to help you specifically, right? So when it then comes to these things, how can you best help them? Is it via email? Is it via, I don't know, even voice messages over on WhatsApp? Is it via Skype live calls? So whatever it is, pick your medium, stick with that, and try to perfectionize it for your style of coaching. And this is basically everything that I can say to this, and then everything else will be depending on kind of the format of your coaching style.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to add, don't get disheartened if it takes you forever to do client check-ins at first, because I now have somewhat like 20 clients. When I started as an intern, I had 5. It took me back then the same amount of time it takes me now to do 20 client check-ins, to do 5 client check-ins back then. So it's a work in process. And I know that a year from now, I'll probably be even better at doing that, and it will just be easier.
Yeah, totally. And also there on that note, one more time, the length of a check-in doesn't dictate or doesn't really tell how good of a coach you are. And I think that this is, I don't know, like back in 2018, I've seen someone always posting like the video length of his check-ins, and I was just like, yeah, sure, your replies are like 18 minutes long, but couldn't you deliver the same message and the same information in just a more shorter time frame? That is why YouTube videos longer than 13 minutes most of the time don't really work, because people's attention span is so short. They want to get the most amount of information in the least amount of time. And this, I think, is also something that a good coach can deliver, like just shooting out like a machine gun the information that is relevant for the client. And if then your response is only like in a video format, like 4 minutes, or in an email format, just like a couple of phrases, so be it, as long as it was informative and actually brought the point to the client, what they have to do, what is going on, etc., etc.
That's a really good point. Yeah, especially. We've always felt, like, at least when I started, I used to do the same thing. Like, I'd want to make it long to make it valuable. But then I asked most of my clients, like, what format do you listen to? How do you consume the check-in? And most of them said they listen to it when they're commuting to work. So I thought, well, then there's no point in it being really long, because they're concentrating on other things. So you need a short, sharp, sweet and useful. That's the best advice I'd give there.
Yeah. And one more thing, and then I stop here. Don't think that only because other people or coaches are doing it in a specific way that you have to do it the same way as well. Just take a look at someone like Cliff Wilson. So when it comes to spreadsheets, he's sometimes not even using spreadsheets. That's what he told me. And would you say that he's a bad coach? Holy shit, no. I mean, just like take a look at the results that he delivers with his clients. And that's all that matters. Are you able to get the clients to their desired outcome or even further beyond that? And then the way you do it is entirely up to you.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
Cool. Let's move over to the next question. I have a different one because I thought that this one is very, very cool from Michael. So your client, Harry. So top takeaway of 2020. 20 minutes with other two to discuss each. That's a different thing. So yeah, top takeaways of 2022.
Top takeaways of 2020 is in like what went well for us in 2020.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe
what you want to off for giving us a hard question.
Yeah, or something that you want to do differently, or maybe there was something that you've learned due to the situation that we're in right now.
The best thing I think that came out of it is it helped me to realize how, like what Jess said earlier, how muscular tension is the most important thing when it comes to creating effective training sessions. So there was like a dilemma at the start of like the first batch of lockdowns where it was like, shit, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to make our clients keep making progress? And then when we went right back to those fundamentals, like, can we still provide tension in some way? And then now we've spent enough time in lockdowns and quarantines and stuff where we've realized that, yeah, tension is the most important factor. And provided you can create consistent tension over time, you are going to continue making progress in the same manner that you would even without access to barbells and machines and stuff like that. So my biggest takeaway was how having an intense internal focus on making an exercise hard can make that exercise sufficiently difficult enough to elicit a growth stimulus. So that's my biggest one, I think. And that's broadened my own kind of range of exercises I consider to be valid when I'm programming now. Like even people who do have access to equipment, I'm still seriously considering things like deficit push-ups and stuff like that, because like this whole incident has taught, or series of incidents has taught me how you can still, well, yeah, it's basically broadened my range of exercises that I consider to be effective. Yeah.
What about you, Jess?
Definitely the fact that you don't need a gym to be training, even efficiently. It's going to require a little bit more motivation and creativity, but I do think that you can. I went through a successful dieting phase and maintained, even increased slightly muscle mass while training at home for the most part of my cut. Another takeaway, or top takeaway, would be the value in walking. I took so many walks, listened to podcasts, audiobooks. It made me educate myself even more because I had free time. And I think it's also about the value of, this concept of a lifetime against dead time, where you can just choose what you do with the time that you have, even if you're stuck at home. So don't dwell on it, just do something about it. Like, it doesn't have to be toxic positivity, but if you can pick up a book, if you can go for a walk, that's definitely a positive that you can add to your life. And also, one big takeaway, memes save lives. Memes were just like my my savior in 2020. Nothing else than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the majority of people have probably come to that takeaway as well, especially when it comes to those people that we are speaking with about training, especially like training from at home can be challenging. It can be stimulative enough so that you're even able to gain some muscle mass with minimum equipment. And the more equipment you have at home, the easier it is, of course. So when it comes to a training perspective, then this is one of my takeaways as well. Secondary to that one, though, how to properly train when it comes to gauging the RER correctly and also then improving the mind-muscle connection. This has just made a huge leap forward for me in 2020. And then from a nutritional standpoint, not so much, to be honest. But from a life perspective, it's just like taking more time for myself. And then by that, I mean the family. Normally, I'm always like working 7 days out of the week. And this is something that I simply don't want to do any longer. And I think that's fair enough. I know that there are people who do that. I've been there like years on end. But I now have a family at home, and that's something that is very dear to me. It's the most important thing, actually, and I don't want to be that father who looks back and regrets that he never made use of the time that he had, especially because the kids are at home and stuff like that. So this is one major thing that I came to realize in 2020. This is something, an opportunity, and also a once-in-a-lifetime thing for me that I don't want to go to waste, and nothing for me is as important as this. Doesn't even come close, and I would sacrifice everything for just be able to spend even more time together with them. And yeah. Any other input here?
No, that was a good point.
Somewhat on the same page as you. Obviously, I don't have kids, but I've definitely realized the value my own time has to me now versus work time. That's something that I've learned in 2020. Like, yeah. I've actually said no probably to more things than I usually would have, because I was just like you, Pascal. Yeah. Like, I'd do 7-day weeks all the time, and it's just reached a point this year where I just had this like epiphany that I just don't want to do that anymore. Definitely putting myself and time with loved ones is way more important now than ever.
I think we both talked about it at some point about video games, that I used to play a lot of video games when I was younger, and I haven't done this in years, and I still haven't done it. But there was a time where I was just thinking, I want to be able to do this again here in the near future. not because I have to, not because I see much value in them playing video or me playing video games, other than, of course, relaxation and also maybe switching your mindset just a little bit. But the more I come to that point, it has a different meaning to it. And that is being able to take that time, having the luxury of taking that time, because I know that there are so many places in the world and so many people in the world who simply can't afford to take that free time of just relaxing and do something that you just enjoy. And even if it's just like lying on the couch and playing a video game, right? Which is for many people a luxurious dream that they never be able to actually pursue. And that's why
guilt-free, that's important.
Exactly.
That was important
and
to me,
this is something that I'm working towards, that at some point I want to be there. I want to, I don't know, sit down with my kids and just play something, right? Or something like this, without being like in the back of my head, no, I need to do this, need to do that. And that doesn't mean that I don't have any kind of aspirations and goals for like the business or myself. It just means that I think that a balanced approach is probably a better way, unless you want to become, I don't know, the richest person on earth. But then also at the same moment, are we then in the right business? I don't think we are. other than selling our souls to mass media and that just like selling just ridiculous templates and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, for me, this was very, very important. And I think that I'm getting better and better at it. And even Katie just recently said that she's super grateful and happy that I'm taking more and more time now for them and for the kids. And if she's already realizing that, I think that the kids will do so especially.
Yeah, that's a good way. Yeah.
Cool. Let's move on to one more question, and then we call it a day here. So there was an interesting question from, I can't even pronounce his name, educating clients about behavior change and pain signs. I think, though, that this is a little bit outside of our scope of practice, at least when it comes to pain signs. Behavior change, yeah, maybe, but this is something that where I would always like say, okay, just read something like Atomic Habits. Fantastic book. Gives you much more than we could ever put into this podcast episode. That's why I would just like move over to the other question, and that is from our man, I think it's Josh, right? The VT
Josh.
Grizzly? Yeah.
Josh.
Let's keep talking about fear of the bulk in physique comps.
Does he mean bulking phases or a bulky physique on stage?
I think go ahead, Jess.
Yeah, I think he means massing phases or getting a little bit fluffier. Yeah. That's really interesting. And I think that can apply to so many people, ourselves included. I mean, that's what I preach. I try to preach as much as I can. It's just emphasizing the importance of an off season and that you're going to have to get a little bit fluffy, because after a certain amount of time training, if you're in a caloric surplus because you need to put on muscle, you're going to gain a little bit of fat with it. And I think the more we put this forth in social media and the more we show the reality of it, the more we show how normal it needs to be, I think the better it's going to become. There will always be huge accounts that are going to promote being lean year round, that are going to talk about body positivity or positive body image, positive body image. But I don't think they have a place. They're in a place to talk about that when they are shredded year round, or where they have, very good genetic. Those people are like elite genetics. Like, they're not like most of the people, most of us. I think it's just a matter of all coming together and show more of how we actually look in our off season. Like, I can get shredded, I can get ab veins in my off season. I carry my body fat around my hips and on my midsection, and that's what I need to do to grow. And this is just the reality of it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. That is just how we grow. We need to gain a little bit of body fat to gain muscle. And it's something that I really hold dear to my heart, because it really bothers me when I see most influencers using body positivity or having, body image issues when they are just shredded year round, when they post edited videos and pictures all the time. It's just really unethical for me, and it really troubled me.
Absolutely. This is total. I couldn't agree more with this, because it's just like, you have problems and you speak about like keeping a positive mindset on everything. You are basically earning money with the way you look, right? You probably don't have that much or big of an issue such as other people have, especially the ones that you're speaking to. But yeah, in and for itself, this is just also a different discussion, right? So for me personally, I'm also someone who obviously deals with that and still deals with it on a basically daily basis, or every single time I'm gaining, right? Or coming out of a cutting phase. When I'm in a cutting phase, coming out of it, I am already still lean, but then thinking like, I don't want to gain, because now finally I look good, but do I want to make progress? Yes. So you're always in that ambivalent state of two opposites to another. And especially for someone like me, I tend to hold on to the majority of fat around my chest, and also then midsection around the front side. So this is the most unfavorable spot to hold fat for a male. And that, of course, plays tricks in you the entire time when you are in a gaining phase. And I know how challenging it can be. But then you just have to ask yourself the question, is it more important for you to look good? Or is it more important for you to actually make progress for your bodybuilding endeavors? Right? And this basically just answers the question already. And both are absolutely all right. Especially in natural bodybuilding, where we are not really earning any kind of money with our body, or when we are stepping on stage, it would be absolutely all right to also then stay relatively lean year round and accept that you're probably not making the best or most amount of progress. Because, man, this is your life, this is your journey. Do you rather want to be always fat and miserable, but looking absolutely amazing and perhaps be super competitive in a natural bodybuilding realm? No offense to those who think that this is something that they want to pursue, but I mean, this is, I think, a valid question to have for yourself, of like, okay, what is more important for me? And I know for me personally, when I'm old enough, then I will definitely jump probably on TRT just to feel good first and foremost. And then secondarily, I will probably stay at a body fat year round and train to maintain that, instead of going through cyclical phases of cutting and bulking, cutting and bulking.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, save the year-round leanness until you got probably 2 decades of training behind you. And then you'll look good, whether you're peak off season or shredded anyway, because you would have spent 20 years gaining muscle, and then you can worry about trying to maintain a lean physique all the time.
Oh,
yeah.
Once your career's behind you, if you have a career in the sport, that is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for coming on with me this time here on the Coaching Corner. Do you have anything that you want to let the listeners know, where they can find you? I mean, if they don't know by now, I would be very surprised, especially due to the becoming a meme king, or queen rather, over on Instagram.
I have had way more interactions with people now that I'm posting memes every day on my stories. They're like, just keep it up, it's amazing. Like, I enjoy watching your stories because you put so many memes on there. So I'm thinking I'm going to start doing fitness memes, just because it's funny.
To be fair, I was even considering doing it myself, and I said that to you already, Jess. Oh, she's now gone.
Time to do that, but yeah, no.
Yeah, Jess, you froze up here. So can you still hear us? No, she can't. So I think that, Harry, do you want to end the show with something?
No, I was going to say, I started the fitness memes about 3 years ago. I was early to the party. I'm bored of them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's like when I listened to that band before they were cool.
Yeah, absolutely. There she is again. Guys, then thank you very much for coming on once again. And it was good speaking to you. And as always, if people have any kind of questions, leave them in the comment section below. Or if it's more of a personal question to any one of us, head over to Instagram, send a message to us. And other than that, Thank you guys, and I guess I'll speak to you very soon. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge. And I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.